I am the coldest and most ruthless princess in the northern Beijing investment world. From a very young age, when relatives borrowed money and refused to repay it, then used the excuse that talking about money would hurt family feelings, I showed no mercy. I took them straight to court and auctioned off their house to recover both principal and interest. In the business world, if an opponent begged me to leave them a way out, I would hand them a bankruptcy liquidation agreement, and even tell them exactly which building to jump from so they would die faster. From that moment on, no one ever dared to put on a pitiful act in front of me again. That was, until the day I visited the film crew I was investing in. There, I saw my fiancé Daniel, the director, my brother Michael, a top movie star, and my childhood friend Kevin, a gold medal screenwriter, all surrounding, caring for, and attentively checking on a frail actress who looked like a delicate white greenhouse flower. Everything they did was simply to highlight her fragile beauty. Without my consent, they had burned down the full-scale palace set that I had spent 3 million yuan to build. When I confronted them, impatience was clearly written all over Daniel's face. "Grace, this is art. Emmeline's tears are priceless." My brother Michael sneered coldly. "If you dare to be harsh toward little Emma, I won't act in this movie anymore." Kevin was even more mocking. "Grace, if you don't understand art, then don't interfere with us." The young actress, Emmeline, shrank timidly behind them, her face filled with innocence. I nodded, took out my phone, and directly called the legal department. "Since all of you are so united, then you can pay the bill together. According to the contract, unauthorized destruction of principal filming assets, abandoning work without justification, and excessive distortion of the script all constitutes serious breaches of contract. The three of you, your total penalty for breach of contract is 500 million yuan. Are you planning to sell your houses or borrow money at usurious interest rates to pay it off? Oh, and my dear brother, you are only an adopted son of the Jiang family. You don't have the right to point fingers at me." Just moments ago, the filming site had been bustling, with people gathered like stars surrounding the moon. Now only the shrill howling of the wind remained, blowing through the ashes. The palace that had been burned down was still releasing thick black smoke, and the air was heavy with the acrid stench of scorched wood. My fiancé Daniel stood there, and the impatience that had been on his face earlier had completely frozen, replaced by a sense of absurd disbelief. "Grace, are you out of your mind? We're talking about art here, and you're talking to me about money?" He pointed sharply at Emmeline, who was still sobbing among the ruins. "Do you know how shocking that scene just now was? Little Emma standing in the fire, that feeling of despair and fragility, that was the most brilliant moment of the entire film. For just a few seconds of footage, what does it matter if a lifeless building gets burned?" I lowered my head and made a few quick taps on my tablet, pulling up the real-time surveillance footage from earlier and extracting the original clip showing I began, then adjusting it slightly. "This is not a lifeless building. This is a real structure. Asset number 002 on the Jiang Group's fixed asset list. The cost price was 3,280,000 yuan, not including labor and transportation." I turned off the screen, my tone calm and detached. In addition, destroying assets worth millions, just for a few seconds of footage, in financial reports, this is not called art. It's called a loss of fixed assets. No, that's not accurate. It should be called intentional destruction of company property. Standing off to one side was my dear brother Michael, who also happened to be the male lead of this film. At that moment, he removed the jade crown from his roll and slammed it hard onto the ground, where it shattered into pieces. "Grace, do you even have a heart? Little Emma almost got burned because of this scene, and you don't care about her at all. Do you only care about my money?" He stepped in front of Emmeline protectively and looked at me with undisguised disgust. "I'm warning you. Apologize immediately and make little Emma take back those crazy words she just said. Otherwise, I won't just quit this movie. I'll also let Mom and Dad know exactly how you bully people outside." Emmeline gently tugged at Michael's sleeve, her tears falling like a broken string of pearls. "Brother Michael, please don't blame Grace. This is all my fault. I'm too stupid. I couldn't act out that kind of feeling, so the director had to come up with this method. Those 3 million yuan, I'll think of a way to pay it back. She cried miserably, like pear blossoms caught in the rain, her body swaying as if she might collapse at any moment. Standing beside her, the gold medal screenwriter Kevin looked heartbroken. He reached out to support Emmeline, pushed up the gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose, and looked at me with an air of lofty righteousness. Grace, what you're doing is far too vulgar. Emmeline may not have money, but her spirit of self-sacrifice for art is priceless. You, reeking of money, fundamentally don't understand what soul resonance is. Besides, the palace has already burned down. Bringing up money again now, aren't you deliberately humiliating her? He was my childhood friend, the one who had sworn when we were young that he would protect me for life. Now, he had joined forces with the other two, people who should have loved me unconditionally, to form a united front, standing on the moral high ground and condemning me together. No one on the film crew dared to breathe too loudly. Their eyes darted back and forth between the few of us. I looked at these three men, and to be honest, I couldn't understand them at all. In the past, they said my personality was too cold, that I didn't understand how the world worked, so I tried to make an effort to understand their so-called way of doing things. Daniel wanted to make an art film, so I invested. Michael wanted to bring capital into the project, so I approved it. Kevin wanted to revise the script, so I tolerated it. In the end, I had raised a group of ingrates who didn't know the meaning of gratitude or their own limits, repeatedly humiliating me. I looked at Kevin. Since you say Emmeline's tears are priceless, then fine. I turned around and waved to the legal director standing behind me. Attorney Wong, write this down. Mr. Kevin believes that Miss Emmeline's performance value exceeds 3 million yuan. In that case, the expenses incurred for this art should naturally be borne jointly by those who benefit from it and acknowledge its value. If all of you believe this fire was worth it, burned rightly, and burned artistically, my gaze swept across the faces of the three of them, then please, you three artists, pay for this expensive work of art yourselves. Michael was the first to explode. He had always taken pride in being the eldest young master of the Zhang family. Although he was only adopted, our parents treated him like their own son, even favoring him more than me, their biological daughter, because of his smooth-talking nature. Having spent years in the entertainment industry and being constantly flattered by fans, he had grown accustomed to it and truly believed himself to be untouchable. Grace, stop waving a chicken feather like it's an imperial arrow. I'm the eldest young master of the Zhang family. This film was originally invested in by the Zhang family anyway. What's wrong with me burning a little of my own family's property? You're saying I have to compensate? What a joke. He crossed his arms over his chest, his face full of arrogant confidence. Besides, I'm the male lead. If I stop acting, let's see how your movie gets made then. When the losses pile up, you won't be able to handle them. Looking at his domineering expression, I found it ridiculous. Michael, it seems you've misunderstood the concept of your own family's property. I took a stack of documents from Attorney Wong and tossed them straight at his feet. This is your employment contract. It clearly states in black and white that you are Party B, while Jiang Media Group is Party A. From a legal standpoint, our relationship is one of employment, not a family relationship. Second, the actual investor of this film is an independent company registered under my name, Harlan Pictures. It has nothing to do with Jiang Group, not a single cent, which means this money is entirely my personal investment. I stepped forward, the heel of my high-heeled shoe pressing down on that contract. As for your claim that you'll quit acting, I took out my phone and opened a folder labeled Backup Artist Pool and showed it to him. From the very first time you started arriving late and leaving early because of Emmeline, I had already activated the risk contingency plan. The technical team, stand-in crew, and 3 backup male leads are all currently on standby at the hotel next door. Do you really think you're irreplaceable? I let out a soft, cold laugh. In the eyes of capital, you're nothing more than a component, something that can be replaced at any time. In fact, if you quit, I can even sue you for intentional breach of contract and demand compensation for all losses caused by the film crew's shutdown. Michael's face instantly turned deathly pale. He had always thought I was the little sister trailing behind him, someone who would clean up his mess, no matter how coldly he treated me. He had forgotten how I fought my way through blood and fire on one street, and how I managed to secure my seat on a board filled with seasoned old foxes. Seeing Michael fall into a disadvantage, Daniel finally realized that I was not joking. He frowned, clearly intending to pressure me using his status as my fiancée. "Grace, stop making a scene. I know, you're just jealous because I've been paying too much attention to Emma lately, right?" He lowered his voice and stepped forward, trying to take my hand. "Emma and I are innocent. We're only doing this for artistic creation. Being so calculating like this not only hurts everyone's feelings, it also makes you look petty. As long as you take back what you said just now and apologize to Emma, how about I take you out to dinner tonight?" I shifted aside to avoid his hand, then wiped the spot on my sleeve where he had touched me with a tissue, my expression full of disgust. "Daniel, if your self-confidence could be sold by the pound, it probably wouldn't even fetch much money. Jealousy? You think you're worthy of that?" I pointed at the ruins. "My anger is very simple, because on my balance sheet, an unnecessary bad debt has appeared, and according to my principles, bad debts must have someone held accountable. You say this was for art? Fine. Then let's talk about the director's contract." I signaled for Attorney Wong to continue. Attorney Wong pushed up his glasses and read emotionlessly. According to the betting agreement signed between director Daniel and Harlan Pictures, if personal reasons on the director's part cause filming costs to exceed 20% of the budget or result in serious asset losses, the investor has the right to terminate the contract and demand double compensation for the director-caused losses. Director Daniel, this fire not only burned through the budget, it has also triggered the compensation mechanism. Daniel froze, his face alternating between pale and flushed. You set me up from the very beginning?" "No," I looked at him coldly. "You walked into the trap yourselves. I had given them top-tier configurations and the most abundant funding, yet they treated my trust as capital to act recklessly. In the adult world, every decision has already been priced in advance. Now, it was time to pay the bill." Seeing both men defeated, Emmeline finally couldn't hold back anymore. She understood very well that she was the center of this entire drama. If she didn't step forward now, this performance, because once love stands against capital, the show can no longer go on. Emmeline suddenly let go of Kevin's sleeve and dropped heavily to her knees on the dust-covered ground, her knees striking the rubble with a dull thud. That kneel was visually aggressive, deliberately dramatic. Staff members nearby secretly took out their phones to record, whispers spreading through the crowd. "President Grace, this is all my fault, every bit of it," Emmeline said as she looked up, her pure face drenched in tears, her gaze both stubborn and tragic. "I shouldn't have pursued perfect shots. I shouldn't have made things difficult for Director Daniel and Brother Michael. I'll pay back the 3 million yuan. Even if I have to sell my blood or my kidney, I will return every cent to you. Please don't make things hard for them." What a flawless white lotus, aloof and pure. Those words not only cast her perfectly as the victim, but also subtly accused me of abusing my power to bully others, while conveniently earning sympathy and tenderness from the three men. Sure enough, Michael's eyes reddened with emotion as he rushed forward to help her up. "Little Emma, get up. This has nothing to do with you. Let's see if she dares lay a finger on you." Kevin was furious as well. "Grace, look at yourself right now. You're no different from a vicious debt collector. Forcing a weak woman to kneel like this, aren't you afraid of karma?" I watched this ridiculous performance with complete calm. Not even a ripple in my heart. I almost wanted to laugh. Attorney Wong was already drafting a repayment agreement when I interrupted their heartfelt drama. Since Miss Emma Lin is willing to take responsibility for this debt, then, as the creditor, I should naturally fulfill her sense of duty. The entire set froze. Emma Lin's sobbing caught in her throat. Clearly she hadn't expected me to go along with it so smoothly. In her mind, I should have been moved by her so-called righteousness, or shamed into retreat by everyone's criticism. That was merely her shallow understanding. I walked up to Emmeline and looked down at her from above. Miss Lynn, stand up before we talk. I don't like people kneeling when negotiating business with me. It makes me feel like you're trying to morally coerce me. Emma Lynn stiffly stood up, her legs still trembling. The terms are very simple, I said slowly and clearly. The burned palace, plus the losses caused by the production shutdown that may follow, total approximately 5 million yuan. At your current pay rate, you'd have to work without eating or drinking for 25 years to pay that off. Considering your ability to repay, I'm willing to allow installment payments. However, during this period, all of your acting income will be transferred directly into the supervised account of Harlan Pictures. In addition, to prevent you from fleeing, we'll need to sign an exclusive contract. During these 25 years, you may only work for Harlan Pictures. Not only that, since you've admitted that your pursuit of perfection directly led to the fire, this constitutes a serious violation. Before the debt is fully repaid, your living expenses will be issued at the city's minimum wage standard. So, Miss Lynn, will you read and sign? Emma Lynn's face turned as white as paper. She looked helplessly toward Daniel and Michael for help. She only wanted to perform a self-sacrificing act, not actually sell herself into it. Grace, this is a slave contract. It's illegal, Kevin shouted angrily. No, I corrected him calmly. This is debt restructuring. Since she has no assets to enforce a judgment against, she can only sell her labor. That's perfectly fair commercial logic. Didn't you just say she'd smash the pot and sell the iron if she had to repay the money? Now I'm only asking her to work to repay the debt, and you can't take it anymore? My gaze sharpened instantly. Or were the things Miss Lynn just said nothing more than a performance, mere words meant to win sympathy? If she doesn't even have the courage to shoulder responsibility, then she shouldn't imitate others by putting on a show of righteous sacrifice. Wanting to be both the prostitute and the one enshrined in a temple, there's no place for that in my film crew. That's enough. Enough. Daniel, who had been silent all this time, suddenly exploded. He snatched the repayment agreement from Attorney Wong's hands and tore it to shreds, the paper scattering across the ground. Grace, aren't you just relying on the fact that you have a little filthy money? Fine. I'll pay this money for little Emma. He pulled a black card from his pocket and slammed it hard onto the table. This is my secondary card. There are 3 million in it. The password is your birthday. Take it. Michael let out a cold laugh as well, pulled out his car keys and tossed them over. And me too. This limited edition sports car is worth at least 2 million. I'll pledge it to you. The car plus the card add up to more than 5 million, enough to pay the debt. From now on, we're settled. Even though Kevin didn't have money, he still stubbornly shouted, I'll write this into the script and let everyone see your true face, Grace. You've lost the people who treated you sincerely. In the future, just hug that pile of money and grow old alone. Looking at the black card and the car keys on the table, I not only didn't get angry, I broke into the first genuinely warm smile of the day. Very good, I signaled for Attorney Wong to collect those items. If someone is willing to pay, that's naturally for the best. But Director Daniel, it seems you've forgotten something. I picked up the black card and twirled it slowly between my fingers. This is indeed your secondary card. But the primary card it's linked to appears to be tied to the corporate account of the Gu family company. And that company, I paused briefly and looked at him with pity. If I remember correctly, just last month, in order to raise liquidity, Uncle Gu mortgaged 51% of the company's shares to the Jiang family. Which means you're using my money to pay off a debt you owe me. Daniel's face instantly froze, as if struck by lightning. And you as well. I continued, turning my gaze to Michael. Brother, the sports car was Mom's birthday gift to you, and last month it was registered under the Jiang family's name. What right do you have to dispose of family assets? As for you, Mr. Kevin, I said, looking at the man who only knew how to run his mouth, go ahead and write whatever you want, but I have to remind you, your behavior just now already constitutes public insult and defamation. My legal team will closely monitor your scriptwriting process. If any content is found to infringe on my reputation or rights, you'll learn what it means to be sued until you don't even have the clothes on your back left. The expressions on all three of their faces became extraordinarily vivid. They were used to enjoying privilege, used to spending other people's money to fulfill their dreams, and had never once considered that the foundation of all those privileges had always been in my hands. The so-called sincerity you talk about is built on draining my blood. After eating my flesh, you still complain that my bones are too hard? I withdrew my smile, my voice turning icy. Attorney Wong, notify security to clear the scene. Since the breach of contract compensation is still insufficient, proceed strictly according to legal procedures. Now, please have all unrelated parties leave my film set immediately. Then I added, also, call the police. I pointed at the palace that was still smoking, my tone sharp and resolute. Arson is a serious criminal offense. Whether it's in the name of art or love, setting a building on fire and endangering public safety is not merely a matter of financial compensation. That means going to prison. Daniel and Michael were completely thrown into panic. They had thought this was nothing more than a family conflict, a game of capital, forgetting that in a society governed by law there are red lines that must never be crossed. Grace, you dare call the police? Daniel shouted in disbelief. I'm your fiancé, and Michael is your brother. He tried to rush forward, but the bodyguards who had already been prepared forced him down. Emma Lynn was even more terrified and collapsed to the ground. This time, her crying was real. Don't arrest me. I didn't mean it. I really didn't, she sobbed hysterically. The sound of police sirens echoed from afar, shattering the stillness of the film set. I stood above them, looking down at those distorted, horrified faces, and felt only a sense of relief inside. When the curtain finally falls, you go to the station and savor the taste of tears behind iron bars. That's the proper ending. As Daniel and Michael were escorted into the police car, the scene was no different from the biggest drama of the year. Especially Michael. As a top-tier star with tens of millions of fans, the face he once took pride in was now smeared with black and white soot, and the cold handcuffs on his wrists became the most ironic accessory of all. Don't film! Don't film! Michael screamed at the onlooking staff. I'm Michael Jang. Smash those cameras for me. He tried to suppress everyone with the authority he once wielded. Unfortunately, when the wall falls, everyone pushes. The ordinary crew members he used to boss around, the junior assistants he had scolded until they cried, may not have openly cheered, but the phones in their hands were held as steady as tripods. They wished they could shove their lenses right up his nostrils for a close-up. Emma Lynn, however, was still acting. She seized the moment, deliberately collapsing into the arms of a young police officer, moaning weakly that she felt dizzy. Please maintain your dignity, the officer said coldly. He was clearly a straight-laced professional and showed her no courtesy at all, pushing her upright and even stepping back to keep his distance. This is law enforcement recording equipment. The entire process is being audio and video recorded. Please cooperate with the investigation. Emma Lynn's face instantly stiffened. I stood not far away, watching as Attorney Wong calmly handed over the surveillance hard drive, the asset inventory, and the audio evidence to the police, including the recordings in which the three so-called artists had personally admitted to committing arson. At the very last moment before being shoved into the police car, Daniel clung tightly to the car door. For the first time, genuine fear showed in his eyes. Grace, do you really have to be this ruthless? Once a case is officially filed, I'm finished. The cooperation between the Gu family and the Jiang family will completely collapse. I stepped forward and looked at him through the car door, as if he were a stranger. Director Daniel, let me correct you. It was you who personally burned down the bridge of cooperation. As for whether the Gu family collapses or not, that depends on how quickly your uncle fills the hole, not on me. And one more thing, don't cling to the car door. This is a police vehicle. Damaging it counts as obstruction of law enforcement. That would be another charge added to your list. The police car wailed as it drove away, and the film set finally fell silent. I didn't rush to leave. Instead, I turned to look at the production manager who was trembling uncontrollably. When he was singled out, the middle-aged man flinched violently, cold sweat pouring down his forehead. President Jiang, President Jiang. I flipped through the attendance records on my tablet. As the person in charge of this project, you watched the director and actors cause chaos and failed to stop them. You even cooperated with them by mobilizing security to clear the scene and facilitate arson. Your career ends here. In addition, the company's legal department will pursue your liability for all associated losses caused by your dereliction of duty. Pack your things and get out. After the scene was handled, I sat back into the limousine. The moment the door closed, my personal phone began vibrating nonstop. On the screen, a single word appeared: Mom. I answered the call. On the other end of the line, my mother's shrill screaming immediately erupted, mixed with heartbroken sobbing. She yelled that I had lost my mind. That's your brother. And your fiancé too. You actually dared to send them to jail? Are you trying to anger your father and me to death? Hurry up and go to the police station and withdraw the report right now, immediately. I held the phone a little farther away, waiting for that wave of sonic assault to pass before speaking. Mom, Michael is an adopted son. Legally, we are siblings by adoption, but he committed a criminal offense. Even his biological father couldn't protect him. Second, Daniel set fire to company property. I am the legal representative of the company. If I don't report it to the police, then I would be committing the crimes of concealment and embezzlement of corporate assets. My voice remained calm instead of shouting back. Finally, Mom, you should have the public relations department prepare a statement, because photos of your beloved son Michael being led away in handcuffs will probably hit the top trending searches in about 5 minutes. The line fell into brief silence, followed by chaotic noise. I hung up, rubbing my temples in exhaustion. This was only the beginning. My mother was truly biased and completely irrational. Fortunately, the family business had already been placed in my hands. Inside the police station's mediation room, the atmosphere was stretched taut like a drawn bowstring. Members of the Gu family and the Jiang family arrived almost at the same time. Daniel's mother, Mrs. Gu, who was usually so composed and dignified, rushed toward me the moment she saw me, raising her hand to slap me across the face. You little bitch, before you've even married into the family, you already dare to harm my son. If anything happens to Daniel, I'll make you pay with your life. The bodyguards, already on alert, immediately grabbed her wrist and gently pushed her back. Mrs. Gu staggered, and Uncle Gu caught her. Grace, how dare you let your people lay hands on an elder? Uncle Gu barked angrily, his face dark with authority. I remained seated, not even bothering to stand up. Uncle Gu, this is a police station. Assaulting someone gets you detained. I'm helping Auntie, that's all. Mrs. Gu trembled with rage. It's just burning down a dilapidated house. How much could it possibly be worth? Can't our Gu family afford to pay? Do you really have to be this heartless? 500 million, I stated the number calmly. What? Mrs. Gu thought she had misheard. Breach of contract penalties, asset damage, losses from delayed production schedules, losses caused by stock price fluctuations, plus joint liability for inciting arson, something Miss Emma Lin has already admitted to. That is the price Daniel paid to please a beauty. I took out a detailed financial report and slid it across the table. At the scene earlier, Daniel was very generous and pulled out a secondary card trying to pay on Emma Lin's behalf. Unfortunately, the corporate account of Gu Group, linked to that card, has already been frozen by the bank. Uncle Gu, I said, looking at the man whose forehead was now slick with sweat. If I remember correctly, Gu Group has a 2 billion yuan debt coming due next week. If a scandal breaks out right now, your heir going to prison for arson and misappropriating corporate funds to keep a mistress, please think carefully about what the banks would do. Uncle Gu's pupils contracted. As a shrewd businessman, he immediately weighed the pros and cons. At this moment, Daniel was no longer his son, but a ticking time bomb capable of destroying the entire Gu Group. Grace, my mother stepped forward with reddened eyes and began playing the emotional card. We won't talk about the Gu family for now. But Michael is your brother. He protected you ever since you were little. Have you forgotten how he took you to the park and bought you ice cream? He was just blinded by that Emma Lin girl for a moment. Can't you forgive him just this once? All you need to do is sign the withdrawal letter. Saying it was all a misunderstanding would let them walk free. I looked at my mother, the last trace of warmth in my heart finally cooling completely. From childhood to now, whenever Michael and I had a conflict, regardless of who was at fault, I was always the one made to apologize, because he was the sensitive adopted child whose feelings had to be protected, and I was the sensible biological daughter who was supposed to see the bigger picture. But Michael is 28 years old now, not 8. As an adult and a public figure, knowing full well that it was illegal, yet still participating in arson and even attempting to threaten the investor, he is not only stupid, but vicious. I stood up and straightened my collar. I won't sign the withdrawal letter. Not only will I not sign it, but in my capacity as chairman of Harlan Pictures, I will formally file a lawsuit against Michael, demanding that he compensate for all commercial losses caused by his malicious conduct. Grace, my father finally slammed the table, unable to hold back any longer. Are you trying to drive your brother to his death? Without the Jiang family, where would your Harlan Pictures come from? Believe it or not, I can strip you of your position in Jiang Group right now and crush that little company of yours. Go ahead and try, I said, looking straight into my father's eyes without a trace of fear. Before Grandpa passed away, he directly transferred 35% of Jiang Group's shares to my name. Combined with the scattered shares I've acquired over the years, I am now the largest shareholder of Jiang Group. Dad, you're getting old. If you insist on siding with an adopted son who isn't even related by blood, a useless piece of mud that can't support a wall, and choose to confront your own biological daughter, the real person in control of Jiang Group, I don't mind proposing at next week's shareholders meeting that you retire early and go home to enjoy family affection. Of course, that son of yours will most likely only be seen when you visit him in prison. By the time I left the police station, it was already pitch dark. Just as I had predicted, the hot search keywords had exploded. Harlan Pictures film set fire, Michael Jiang escorted away, feuds of wealthy families. But beneath those conventional topics, one glaring hot search was rapidly climbing: Grace Jiang, the cold-blooded capitalist. Clicking into it revealed a long, tear-soaked article written by the gold medal screenwriter Kevin. Using every ounce of his ability to stir emotions, he portrayed the arson as the ultimate sacrifice for art, turned Emma Lin into the sole muse who had preserved her purity in a corrupted world, and cast me as a vicious woman who didn't understand art, cared only about money, cold and heartless, who, out of jealousy, not only destroyed art, but also sent her own brother and fiancé to prison. The article was accompanied by several photos, one of Emma Lin kneeling on the ground, her face streaked with tears and her knees bruised red. One of me standing above her, looking down with an indifferent expression, the corner of my mouth even holding a faint cold smile, and one of Michael's back as he smashed the jade crown in despair. Kevin's pen was indeed sharp, his ability to incite outrage extremely strong. The comment section below had completely exploded. My God, is this really the face of the rich? Disgusting. I feel so sorry for the brother, protecting the actress and getting sent to the station by his own sister. Emma Lin is too pitiful. She already knelt down and still wasn't spared. Is Grace Jiang some kind of psychopath? Boycott Harlan Pictures. Boycott Grace Jiang. People like her should just go bankrupt. Some people even began digging up my personal information, screaming about sending funeral wreaths to my doorstep. Attorney Wang sat in the passenger seat, staring at the public opinion monitoring dashboard on his tablet, his brows tightly knit. President Zhang, the direction of public opinion is extremely unfavorable to us. Kevin is very skilled at turning black into white. Right now, the entire internet is attacking you. The Public Relations Department suggests we issue a statement first to explain the losses caused by the fire. Explain? I scrolled through my phone screen, looking at those filthy, hard-to-read insults, and let out a soft laugh. In this internet age, people only believe in the weak ones they want to believe in. I'm worth tens of billions, while Emma Lin looks pitiful. No matter how I explain myself, I'll always be wrong. It will only be seen as the arrogance of capital. So what, should I just let them keep splashing dirty water on me? Of course not. I opened a video file. It was a 4K ultra-high-definition recording with no blind spots, captured by 4 cameras on site, along with crystal-clear audio from the recorder. It included Daniel saying, "Emma Lin's tears are priceless," Michael saying, "What's wrong with burning my own family stuff?" and Kevin saying, "Grace, You really are vulgar. Most striking of all was what Emma Lynn said to Daniel right before the fire broke out. Daniel, tell me, if this palace burns down, will Grace Jung go crazy? She treasures these dead objects the most. She doesn't understand our pursuit of art at all. In those 3 seconds, the malice and smug triumph on her face were exposed unmistakably under the high-definition lens. Attorney Wong, I said, send these materials to the Public Relations Department. No captions are needed. Just attach the police case filing record and the fire investigation report from the fire department. Also, draft a lawyer's letter to Kevin. Tell him that if he likes writing stories so much, he can go tell them properly in court. Let's see how he turns arson into art there. I added, pointing at several accounts that were jumping around the hardest. Big fan accounts of Michael. Trace the IPs of these people and send lawyers' letters as well. Spreading rumors with more than 500 shares carries criminal liability. Don't they like cyber violence? Then I'll show them what real cyber violence looks like. Less than half an hour after the video was posted, Weibo's servers crashed. This was what people call reaping what you sow. The blind fans who had been wailing in grief for the best brother protecting little Emma all fell silent after watching that crystal-clear 4K footage, especially Emma Lynn's line, "Will she go crazy?" paired with that smile that was both innocent and cruel as she lit the fire. It shattered everyone's illusions about the so-called pure white jasmine flower. That wasn't fragility, it was pure malice. Damn, was I blind? How is this a so-called innocent goddess? This is clearly an arsonist. And they still dared to call it art? Burning a 3 million yuan palace for fun? Michael Jiang really has something wrong with his brain. This is protecting the weak? This is helping evil do harm. That 3 million was Grace Jiang's personal money. If it were me, I'd call the police too. Not beating them on the spot already shows Grace has a good temper. And that screenwriter Kevin? This is the art he talks about? Someone should check if his brain works properly. Public opinion flipped instantly. The people who had just been calling me cold-blooded now lined up to apologize under my Weibo posts, and even turned around to attack Emma Lynn, Michael, and Daniel, leaving their social media accounts without a shred of armor. My phone rang again from the Zhang family. This time, it was my father. His voice was no longer as hard as it had been at the police station. It carried exhaustion and a rare gentleness. "Grace, this situation has gotten far too big," my father said on the phone. "The Gu family just called. Gu Group's stock has hit the daily limit down, and the banks are pressing for repayment. If you come back early, they're willing to transfer that piece of land to you. They only ask that you issue a letter of withdrawal so Daniel can be released first. As for Michael..." My father hesitated. "Your mother has fainted twice from crying already. He was raised by the Jiang family after all. If he's truly convicted, where would the Jiang family's reputation go?" I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the countless lights of the capital city beneath my feet. "Dad, reputation is something you preserve yourself. It's not something others give you." When Michael smashed the jade crown and cursed at the set, did he think about the Jiang family's reputation? When he stood by and let his fans unleash cyber violence on me, did he think I was part of the Jiang family? As for the Gu family, I gently swirled the glass of red wine in my hand, my gaze icy. That land was originally my target, but I don't want to trade a withdrawal letter for it. That would be far too cheap for them. Tell Uncle Gu that I won't accept a private settlement, but I can buy that land from Gu Group at 70% of the market price. The money will be transferred immediately, enough to help him stabilize the situation. As for Daniel and Michael, I looked at my reflection in the glass, at the version of myself from the past who had constantly compromised for so-called family affection and love. That version of me was already completely dead. Adults must stand upright and accept punishment when they make mistakes. This is the final lesson I'm teaching them, and the tuition is very expensive, not just money, but freedom. After hanging up, I turned to Attorney Wang. "Notify everyone below. Tomorrow we'll convene a board meeting to remove Michael from all nominal positions within the group. Freeze all his credit cards and the assets of any affiliated companies under his name. Also, file a lawsuit against Emma Lynn. I know she has no money and can't possibly repay 5 million yuan. But I will apply for compulsory enforcement and put her on the list of judgment defaulters. Doesn't she want to stay in the entertainment industry? Then I'll make sure that for the rest of her life, she won't even be able to ride high-speed rail or fly. She'll only be able to shine on the bad debt blacklist. After doing all of this, I felt a sense of relief I had never experienced before. As if a malignant tumor that had grown on my body for years had finally been cut out. It hurt, but at last, I could live on. However, just as I was about to turn off the lights and go to sleep, my phone received a text message from an unknown number. There was only one short line. President Jiang, if you don't want what happened 3 years ago to appear on tomorrow's front pages, you'd better come alone to Nightshade Bar right now. 3 years ago, a flash of realization struck me. Before I took over Jiang Group, I had once been drugged during a business negotiation. Although I eventually escaped, I had always suspected that someone had recorded it. I never imagined it would surface now, in this way, and be used to threaten me. Could it be that there was still someone else backing Emma Lin behind the scenes? I clenched my phone tightly. I wanted to see exactly which fool who didn't know the meaning of life and death dared to threaten me at a time like this. Nightshade Bar, VIP room. Dim lights, deafening heavy metal music, and the overpowering stench of alcohol mixed with cheap perfume filled the air. When I pushed the door open, a bald, heavily tattooed man was sitting on the sofa, casually playing with a knife. There was no one else beside him. On the table sat a glass of whiskey on the rocks and a black USB drive. President Jiang, you really live up to your reputation, a true heroine. The bald man grinned when he saw me, revealing a gold-capped front tooth. You've got guts. Came alone? I closed the door behind me and casually locked it. Of course, I walked over and sat down across from him, crossing my legs in a relaxed posture. Since this involved my personal privacy, I didn't want too many people knowing about it. So you're the one behind Emma Lin? The bald man poured a glass of liquor and pushed it toward me. Surname Zhao, he said. People on the streets give me some face and call me Brother Zhao. That girl Emma Lin borrowed 3 million yuan from me, high-interest money. She said it was for cosmetic surgery and buying clothes to hook a rich husband. Originally, if she managed to climb up to the Jiang family or the Gu family, this little bit of money would have been nothing. But now, Brother Zhao toyed with the USB drive, his greedy gaze roaming over me. President Jiang sent her to jail and she lost her income source. This debt has to be taken on by someone, right? I didn't touch the drink, only glanced at the USB. So you want me to pay her debt for her? President Jiang really is smart. Zhao plugged the USB into a laptop beside him and turned the screen toward me. On the screen was a slightly shaky video. It showed me from 3 years ago, my face flushed, stumbling along a hotel corridor while clinging to the wall. Someone seemed to be chasing after me from behind. Although my clothes were still neat, my unfocused, dazed state, if released to the public with a bit of malicious editing and narration, would be more than enough to drag my reputation in the business world through the mud, even spark rumors of a chaotic private life. 10 million, Zhao said. President Jiang, if this thing shows up on the front pages of major financial media tomorrow, Jiang Group's stock price probably won't just drop by 3 million, right? He named his price, 10 million, to buy this USB, conveniently settling Emma Lin's debt as well. I believe for President Jiang, this is nothing more than a grain of sand in the desert. Watching that video, I didn't panic. Instead, I let out a quiet sigh. Brother Zhao, it seems your investigation wasn't thorough enough. I pointed at the screen. This video was filmed at the Mario Hotel 3 years ago. During that negotiation, the other party drugged my drink, but I reported it to the police immediately and completed a urine test with their assistance, proving that I was the victim and that no actual assault occurred. The police case closure report is still in my files. Second, I continued, pointing at the USB, you're trying to threaten me with a blurry video that can even be interpreted from the victim's perspective. All this proves is that you're gambling, betting that I wouldn't dare speak up to protect my image. Zhao's expression changed. He slammed the butterfly knife in his hand down onto the table. Don't spout bullshit to me. I don't care about any case closure reports. Once this video goes out, those idiots online will just look at the images and start talking. When that happens, I'll say you were entertaining clients, sleeping with people to do business. Let's see how you wash yourself clean then. He stood up, his vicious gaze pressing in close. And since you're already here, if you don't hand over the money, do you really think you're leaving? Grace John, this isn't your office building. This is my turf. Facing his threat, I calmly lifted my wrist to check the time. Brother Zhao, it's currently 10:23 p.m. According to Article 274 of the criminal law, extortion involving an especially large amount is punishable by more than 10 years in prison. You just demanded 10 million yuan. This already qualifies as an especially large amount. I then pointed toward the door. And earlier, you said this was your territory, didn't you? Before he could react, the private room door was suddenly kicked open with brute force. The deafening crash sent the glasses on the table bouncing into the air. More than a dozen security personnel in tactical armor, holding riot batons, rushed in and swiftly secured every corner of the room. Immediately after, my special assistant Ethan Chen entered with 2 plainclothes police officers in tow. President Zhang, are you all right? I stood up and smoothed the hem of my dress, glancing at Zhao, whose face was being pressed hard against the cold glass tabletop. I'm fine, but Brother Zhao here seems to have a lot he'd like to say to the police officers. As Zhao was dragged away, he kept hurling curses, shouting that I had no underworld code of ethics, that I dared to bring the police with me. I stood at the entrance of the bar, watching the flashing police lights, and found it absurd. Underworld ethics? I'm a businesswoman. I only care about efficiency and cost. Marching alone to meet a desperate criminal, that's something that only happens in movies. In real life, that's offering your own head for someone else to chop off. The moment he sent that message, I had already traced his phone number and fully investigated his background. A ringleader of an illegal loan sharking gang with a long criminal record. As for the USB, the police confiscated it on the spot. When the technicians examined it later, they even uncovered an unexpected surprise inside. In addition to that video of me, there was a large collection of explicit videos of Emma Lin with different men, along with nude photos she had taken to secure loans. So this was the so-called purity of Emma Lin. She had wrapped herself up with borrowed money, infiltrated the circles of Daniel and Michael, spun those 3 fools around like tops, and even dared to put on a show of despising money in front of me. The irony was almost laughable. By the time I returned to the company, it was already midnight, but I didn't rest. Instead, I immediately convened an emergency board meeting. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere was extremely heavy. My father sat in the chairman's seat, staring at the pile of evidence files I had thrown onto the table. Records of Daniel's misappropriation of corporate funds, reports detailing losses caused by Michael's star tantrums that had repeatedly halted filming, and, most damning of all, the loan contract between Emma Lin and Zhao. On the guarantor line, the name Michael Jiang was clearly written. Dad, do you still want to protect him? I planted both hands on the table, my gaze sharp as a blade as I looked at the man who had aged 10 years in an instant. In just a moment, Michael went from being stupid to using the Jiang family's name to guarantee an illegal high-interest loan. If Zhao had shown up with this contract to demand repayment from us, legally, we would have borne joint liability. 3 million is nothing, but if Jiang Group were dragged into a loan sharking scandal, how much would our stock price drop? 10 billion? 20 billion? My father's hands trembled as he stared at those terrifying documents. Only then did he finally understand that the adopted son he had cherished for so many years was not just useless, but a ticking time bomb capable of blowing up the entire Zhang family enterprise. Enough, he said hoarsely, closing his eyes and waving his hand. Issue an announcement effective today. Michael Jiang is removed from all positions within Jiang Group and stripped of all privileges. And one more thing. His voice grew rough. Send your mother to a nursing facility overseas for a while. She won't be able to withstand this shock. I nodded. This was the best possible outcome. With the internal crisis resolved, it was time to deal with external threats. The next day, the official website of Jiang Group released a series of shocking announcements, declaring that Michael Jiang had resigned for personal reasons and that all labor relationships with him were terminated. As for Director Daniel's serious breach of contract, formally filing a lawsuit and requesting asset freezes, locking down multiple real estate properties under the Gu family's name, publicly disclosing the truth about the attempted drugging case from years ago, and reserving the right to pursue legal responsibility against everyone who spread malicious rumors. This coordinated series of actions completely reversed online public opinion. Those who had once cursed me as cold-blooded, after seeing the evidence of Emma Lin borrowing money with nude photos and Michael's name on the guarantee contract, all exclaimed in unison that President Jiang was truly tragic. This wasn't cold-bloodedness at all. This was clearly running into a scam ring while trying to help the poor. At the same time, the Gu family collapsed entirely. Banks withdrew funding, suppliers demanded payment, and in order to preserve even a sliver of the family assets, Uncle Gu was ultimately forced to accept the buyout plan I had proposed. When the contract was signed, Uncle Gu looked at me with deep regret in his eyes. "Grace, if only we had treated you better back then." "There are no ifs," I said calmly, taking back the contract and handing it to Attorney Wang. "The business world is a battlefield, Uncle Gu. You taught me that yourself. Kind people die fast." 1 month later, in the visitation room of the detention center, separated by a thick pane of glass, I saw Michael again. He had shaved his head and was wearing a gray vest, his entire body emaciated to the point of distortion, his eyes dull and lifeless, no trace left of the high-spirited top star he once was. When he saw me pick up the receiver, he lunged frantically toward the glass. "Grace, Grace, save me. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. This hellhole isn't a place for people. They steal my food and make me scrub toilets. I'm the eldest young master of the Jiang family. I shouldn't be here. Where's Mom? Why hasn't she come to see me? And Dad too, tell them to come save me." I looked at his crazed state and replied calmly. "Mom has gone to Switzerland to recover. Dad is busy cleaning up the mess you left behind. As for you," I looked straight at him, "arson, plus suspicion of participating in illegal loan guarantees. The lawyer says 3 years with 4 years probation would be the best possible outcome. But given the amount involved and the severe social impact, it's very unlikely you'll get a suspended sentence. Michael, behave yourself in there and reform properly." "No, Grace. You can't treat me like this," he screamed. "I'm your brother. I did it all for Emma Lin." "Don't mention Emma Lin again," I cut him off. "She suspected of fraud, large-scale distribution of obscene materials, and inciting crimes. Her sentence will be longer than yours. And because she has no ability to repay those high-interest loans, her creditors outside are all waiting for her to get out. As for Daniel," I continued with a faint smile, "the Gu family has already severed all ties with him to protect themselves. And Kevin," I added, "I've already arranged for lawyers to sue him for defamation. I believe it won't be long before the 4 of you can be reunited in here. You could consider it another way of being tightly bound together." After saying that, I hung up the phone, stood up, and walked away. Behind me came Michael's heart-wrenching wails, but I never once looked back. Stepping out of the detention center gates, the sunlight was dazzling. Beijing in late autumn had a sky so blue and clear it felt unreal. I took a deep breath, feeling as if all the murky air that had clogged my chest for years had finally been swept away. My phone rang. It was Attorney Wang. "President Jiang, the new film crew has been fully set up. The new director and male lead are both at the company, waiting for you to attend the meeting. This time, we've reviewed the script very strictly. There are no exaggerated or arbitrary changes whatsoever. I'll be there right away." I hung up, pulled open the car door, and got in. In the past, I always believed that as long as I didn't calculate too much, as long as be more generous, give a little more, and I could trade it for someone else's sincerity. Now I finally understand. True sincerity is expensive, and not everyone is qualified to possess it. As for those who can't understand human language, who don't understand agreements and rules, and only know how to use emotions to coerce and exploit you, the best response is neither arguing nor forgiving. It is to take decisive, forceful measures, So they understand that in a world governed by rules, there will always be people willing to stand against the current to defend those rules.